Hey,
Hello.
how's it going?
Doing good, doing good. How about you?
I'm doing well. I'm really excited to do creating space with you. Uh, I I know from just interactions in the past that you bring so much thoughtfulness and nuance into all these conversations about all the issues. So I know that we're gonna have a really good time, and I'm looking forward to engaging in this conversation with you. So with that, I wanna make sure folks know a little bit about you who might not already know. I know that there's a fan club. There's like folks who are front and center in this conversation, watching the Instagram live. But for folks who might not know who you are and a little bit about yourself, could you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I'm Josh Hughes. I go by he, him, his pronouns. I'm from St. Petersburg, Florida. I play lacrosse. I'm involved in a lot of things in the community, from NAACP to St. Petersburg Police Explorers here. Student ambassador for my school, which is St. Petersburg Catholic. Um, do a lot of things.
So yeah, definitely you've got a lot of things that you're involved in. Just to highlight, like you said, like St. Pete Catholic, Men in the Making, NAACP, um, just to name a few of those things. Obviously, one of the things that is at the top of the list and is also, I think, part of the bio for a conversation for today is that, and your Instagram account is that lacrosse is at that top of that list in a lot of ways. So, can you kind of just give us like a little bit of background of like how you got started in lacrosse?
So it was kind of weird how I got into lacrosse. So across the street from my house is a pretty big sports complex where I actually used to play Little League football there with a team called Lakewood Spartans, Lakewood Junior Spartans. And then in the spring they would have this lacrosse tournament there. There was a lot of like postgraduate schools, so like a lot of your big prep schools would come there. Um, you would have like different colleges would come sometimes. So I ended up seeing that. I kind of got interested from there, and then I started researching the game, and I saw some. One of the first people I saw was this guy named Kyle Harrison, which is who now like my mentor, my coach. Um, and I saw him, and I really got interested in the game, and then I found out about Miles Jones, who is another professional lacrosse player now, and then some more players called the Thompson brothers, um, which are cousins, and they're it's a couple cousins and a couple brothers, and they are Native Americans, and they play lacrosse. And
Mm.
they're really good at lacrosse now. And just seeing that, I really got interested from there. And then from then on, I just kind of taught myself how to play the game, and then it just kept going.
And you taught yourself how to play the game. I through like YouTube videos and like just kind of like self learning.
Yep. So I basically just started watching on YouTube. Actually, Kyle Harrison had a uh, like an instructional like series, and I would watch that, and then I would just work on each skill until I felt like I was okay with it.
So basically, like since the beginning, like since you first got started with lacrosse, like what has your journey been like? Like how has your passion, your involvement, engagement with lacrosse changed since the beginning?
Um, at the beginning, I kind of just thought it was going to be a game that I got into, and I really liked it. I thought, I could play, and it would just kind of be like playing football, just go out and play. And then as I got kind of older, um, different things started to happen, um, like just uh, playing on different teams where kids were I wasn't treated the same as other kids, or being like in one game being called the N word, or I mean multiple games, and then Like one game, I had like gums put on the back of my short. So from then on, it kind of went from kind of like a sport I love to like something that I've taken it a lot more serious. Um, Now it's turned into more of a more like a mission almost,
Mm.
to where I want to succeed in this game. So other kids like me from here in St. Pete and around the country can grow up and see somebody that looks like them play, just like I had the opportunity to see Kyle Harrison, Miles Jones, Romar Dennis, guys like that, growing up and getting to see them uh, grow. So my that's how it changed to me. It went from just being a game to more of it also became more of an outlet for me to release things, but it became more of a mission to make sure other kids who look like me uh, felt like they were welcome again.
So you've been now involved with this in kind of like this more of a mission sense of being an advocate for more diversity, inclusion, and engaging in combating and confronting the racism in the sport. How much did you expect? Like, and I know, like you were saying at the beginning, like it was kind of like, all right, it's a little bit happenstance, or it's a little bit kind of like, oh, like I found an interest, and then over time, it definitely changed and grew. But how much did you expect to be doing that work prior to starting lacrosse? Like, how much of an idea did you have in mind already? Um, yeah, just starting out.
From the beginning, it was kind of like, maybe it would happen like once or twice. Like you hear something crazy or somebody says something crazy, but I never thought it would get to this point where I'm at now. Um, Really, it from the beginning, I really just thought, like I said, I thought it was going to be a kind of like a game, just play, and then as like I said, as I get older, it changed. But yeah, from the beginning, I didn't expect really to do any of this. I didn't even really expect to. When I first began playing, I kind of took it like practice by practice, pass by pass. Kind of like whatever happens, happens. And then I noticed that I could possibly have a future in this, whether that be just like because I started in fifth grade, so just looking at high school, I was like, well, I could do this in high school. Maybe instead of playing football, I play football and this, and then just kind of grew. And then uh, once these once those incidents happened to me, it kind of went from, like I said, it went to becoming more like a mission. And then at no point I expected to even meet Kyle Harrison or meet any professional lacrosse players.
Mm.
So, uh, like it's kind of funny story, but like a year or two ago, I went to a clinic that Kyle Harrison put on in Tampa. And as a clinic, I'm thinking, it's Tampa, so you normally have like your Jesuit high school, you got Tampa Catholic, Steinbrenner, Plant, Newsom. You got some pretty big high schools over there. And I didn't think I was going to be the one of the better players that was going to show up to that clinic. So it and even get Kyle Harris's attention. So it went from just me showing up and not really thinking anything was going to happen from it to ended up being on his team. Um, I talk to the guy almost every day now, so it's really changed. It went from one little thing to now it's pretty big.
I'm seeing hearts and love in the chat on the Instagram. But
Oh
I'm
yeah,
like, yeah. It's like you think like there's all these other yes, yes. Sam is like yes, yeah. No, that's powerful. How have your experiences growing up, your identities, your just kind of like your prior to getting into lacrosse, like how did that set you up to be ready, yeah, maybe both ready and in position to take this on, as sort of like this legacy, this mission.
um, from a young age, my my parents teach me, if you like something, you go out and you do it, and you try and do the best you can at everything you do. So, um, for me, that was always my thing. I never want to be the average guy or the guy who just squeaks by. Um, what I think what really drove me to look at this game as something I could really do, and to look at, because I know some people who look at the hard work you have to put in to get to the collegiate level to play, or to play professional lacrosse, or even to play on some of these national teams and stuff like that. They look at the hard work and they're like, oh, I don't want to do that. For me, it was I never had that, like, I don't want to put in the work. I don't want to be out in the heat, because I saw what my parents did to make sure I had a good childhood. Um, it really, like, one thing that sticks out to me is, like, my dad, when I was younger, he would work a lot. He worked all night, then he'd come home, sleep a little while, then he would go teach at the police academies, and then was getting his master's as well. So for me, if I could see him doing that, I was like, no need for me to be lazy. I have no excuse. Um, and then also knowing that, from a young age, knowing that my parents always had my back in whatever I wanted to do. Because even when I first picked up a lacrosse stick and I first told my dad I wanted to play, he thought I was kind of like crazy. He thought there was no team around here. So it was kind of it kind of went from like a joke almost to it's become pretty serious for me. So, just from the beginning, it just, from even before, just knowing that I had people who would support me in whatever I wanted to do in life. So, just knowing that my sister was always at my game. So, uh, just that's really what pushed me to want to be good at this game.
Mm.
My family, and knowing that people have my back.
Turning this into sort of like again, like this broader piece of like also not just you being the best at this, but it's also about carving out space for other folks, right? For people of color, for minorities, because I'll share that this is my perception. I don't know if this is a completely accurate perception, but like I'll let you tie in on that. But like when I think of lacrosse, like I think of like, oh, like the schools that you mentioned, I think of like, all right, Plant, like I think of Jesuit, I think of like a lot of kind of majority white schools, or largely white schools, and thinking of like a majority white population. You are carving out space and working in terms of advocating for greater diversity, inclusion. What in your experiences and your background primed you to be able to take on that aspect of this work?
Um, so when I first picked up a lacrosse stick, I thought the same thing. I thought it was just some sport rich, I hate to say it, but rich white kids play. That's what I thought. And then as I learned more about the game, I learned about Jim Brown being one of the best players there ever was. Then learning about the Thompson brothers, Kyle Harris, and then learning about the true um, history of the game, how it came from the indigenous people. Uh, that's what really helped me build uh, that platform that I feel like I'm on now, where I feel like I can actually do something and make sure things are make sure I can be the change that I want to see. Um, yeah, so just, and also knowing that if I don't stand up for what is right, who will, or how will the game be accessible to people after me? That's I had to sit down and think for myself, and really think, if I want to see kids that look like me out, like where I played first started playing across it, which is St. Pete Dragons. It would only be, I think, the most there was black players there at one time was, I think, three of us. So I was like, one day I want to see this field filled with like 30 kids who look like me. I wanted to be, a pretty diverse group. So I think that really pushed me there. And then also some of the coaches I had, like I would have like one incident, a coach, another player from a different team called me the N word during the game and kept saying he would say go back to Africa and stuff like that. And when I told my coach about it, he just told me, oh, be quiet, don't talk about it. You'll be okay and all that stuff. And I really had to sit down and think for myself after it and really think for in the future I don't want other kids to have to experience that. So uh, like one day I think I want to try and coach a youth team to make sure that kids have a coach who will actually listen to them. Thankfully now, like on my travel teams, we just had an incident this weekend with a couple of our players and the team. Um, and thankfully, we have a coach. I have a coach now who really stands up for us and actually listens to us. And ever since that incident happened, he's been on it. I mean, like since Sunday, he's been on it, going through. So that's what I really wanted to see when I was younger that I didn't see. Um, so eighth grade year, I was playing in a game, and I mean, ever since I started playing lacrosse, I've always been a dude that either was on the field all the time or didn't come off the field ever. So I would always like once a season I would get hurt somehow or pull a hamstring or something like that. So, but that game I did something. I hurt myself. But I was on the ground. I remember being on the ground like at least like 2 minutes. And so my dad finally got up and actually got on the field and was helping me up. And then the coach finally recognized I was down. So at that moment, I realized I was like, well, this guy could care less
Mm.
what happens to me. Even if I am scoring, I was averaging probably back then, not to like brag, I was averaging probably like 7 points a game. So it was, he didn't care if I wasn't scoring. He didn't care unless I was scoring. Now, for me, I want kids to know that their coach has their back and actually cares about them, no matter whether they're the best player on the field or they're the worst guy. I feel like every player should have that
Mm.
opportunity.
Absolutely. Speaking to that, I want to kind of recognize some of the comments that folks were leaving. My first year showed me so much, and I like to consider him someone I can call for anything. Such a good guy. Another comment says unacceptable for racism to exist in this or any other game. Just was pointing back to some of the comments in the chat here of just like highlighting how your experience of you know experiencing for yourself the lack of leadership and the lack of support from coaches and from other folks, that you are providing that support and leadership for your peers and the people who are looking up to you already and your leadership while you play. And so just highlighting that in the chat, it's boss to see. And like there's folks saying like speak truth power, yes, and like providing that concrete vision, that tangible vision going forward. Could you speak to the history of lacrosse and like indigenous folks' role in the game?
I'm not a history expert about the game, but from my understanding, basically the game started as a means of healing people, or even as a means of healing people, and sometimes even a way to settle disputes. So, um, like if you go up to New York, like upstate New York, and you go on to some of the reservations up there, they play a game like once a year, or if like somebody that like somebody's parent is sick or something like that, they'll play a game, and it's different than regular lacrosse that you see like at a park or something. It's totally different. It's played
Mm.
way longer. I don't even know how people can play that long, but um, it's it to the game started as a way to heal people, and I think people have lost that. In lacrosse. A lot of people are thinking that it's some sport for rich kids to play, but in actuality, I think it's a sport for everyone to play. Um, and like just here recently, I've seen uh, the the organization that does the Olympics, that governs the Olympics, um, uh, said the Iroquois national team, which is a team for most indigenous people play on. They said they weren't able to be an actual team because they're technically not a standalone country, but which is ridiculous. I don't get how you can have the lacrosse in the Olympics, but you don't have the people who created it in the game. But yeah, that makes no sense. Um, but to me, it's refreshing to see people rally around them, as well as the Black Lives Matter movement within the sport, especially with the PLL, which is the Premier Lacrosse League, the new professional league, and they're having a quarantine championship series out in Utah, and they're most players are wearing a Black Lives Matter patch. Some are even wearing a leg sleeve with that on there. Um, Seeing people rally around causes and use the game to bring awareness to it, as well as try and find solutions to the issue. The PLL is doing more than just wearing something or putting on a performance or something. They're actually going out and helping people and helping organizations who are actually doing the work, and they truly are standing behind what they're saying.
And especially with the example of the communities that created the game not being allowed to participate at an institutional level. It's absurd. Trying to grapple with that. What are some other examples of like solidarity between folks in kind of banding together and supporting one another in order to realize the vision that you have?
Well, even here recently, like this Sunday, I was at a tournament this weekend over in Orlando, um, and in one of our games, we were doing pretty good. And we were playing the team from Space Coast, so over there near Melbourne and all that, Cape Canaveral, that area. Uh, we were playing the team, and uh, they were playing pretty dirty, and uh, one of the players even during the game was talking to one of my teammates. Um, and it was three of us on this team, three African Americans on this team, or really four actually. Um, and during the game, one of their players was telling one of our players to go back to Africa or and go back to Wakanda and things like that. And then even another one of my teammates, so and then later on in the game, we have a couple minutes, like a minute or so left in the game, and we're trying to hold the ball. You're just trying to be respectful to their team, even though they're not being respectful to us, and holding the ball and not trying to just like absolutely just run up the score. Kind of just holding the ball, and one of our players gets pushed on the ground, and there was an altercation that happened. So we're running onto the field. So the game had been called since we were beaten by someone. Okay. So we're running onto the field to go trying to get in the middle of the situation, trying to break people apart. And over to the side, I see one of my other teammates, Trey. This guy called him the N word and all this different stuff. And I've never seen Trey act the way he did. I mean, he didn't do anything wrong, but you can tell he was definitely upset. And so I went away from the main crowd, tried to go over there, but by that point, my coach was telling us all to get on the sideline. But so the, after this, it's like I said, how my coach has handled it right now, and even how. So I sent a text to the guy I was talking about before, Kyle Harrison. He's my role model, my coach. Um, I sent a text message to him, and he's put it out on his social media. He has a pretty big social media platform, and a lot of people follow him, a lot of people listen to him. So we so when we put it out, we've gotten I think a pretty good following, and a good amount of actions come is starting to come. But going back to my coach was on it from the moment he found out about it. Um, because during the game we kind of didn't want to talk about it. We were just focused on winning the game, and then after that we had the championship game for that tournament. So we were really focused trying to win that tournament. Um, and so after that championship game, my coach found out from our player Gabe and Trey, um, and it really and since then he's been on it. Um, and since then he's been on it and really he's been talking to their coach. Um, they're part of a system that's like in lacrosse. You have different programs that are owned by bigger national
Mm,
programs. So they're owned by this other program that isn't too good. But um, my coach been in contact with them. He told him if you guys don't want to fix this, I will, and it's not going to be as nice as the kid wants it to be. So like afraid to say here, like a zero tolerance policy for racism. I think um, coaches need to take a stance like my coach has and really enforce that in this game. So all young adults can feel like they're welcome in this game. It should never uh, no kid should ever have to worry about being called the N word, or
mm.
no kid should ever have to feel like being ostracized from the group. Or every kid deserves a chance to play this game and feel at home when they're on the field. Feel like they can, like the game is the medicine game. Feel like they can go out there and release whatever they need to release in a positive manner and turn your anger, whatever it is, into something good.
I also am like really valuing the focus on sort of the medicine game and like the healing component of this, and thinking about sort of the cultural and the historical aspects of the game and how that makes this work and this mission within this particular sport. I don't know, it resonates and it seems so perfect in that sense of like this is meant to be healing and this is meant to be exactly that. If any game, this should be one where we are cognizant, aware, and actively fighting oppression. Also, I saw a comment that said, "My kind of coach," and definitely like that's a great coach where it's like instead of the coach having your back, it's almost like as if like you have to hold the coach back.
Yeah, oh, it was. He got pretty out there in that game.
There's parallels between lacrosse and like your mission with lacrosse, and then sort of the way that you live and approach things in all other aspects of your life as well. I've been privileged to be with you at Anytown and to be able to bear witness to your advocacy work with like Advocacy Academy and just in other spaces. So, what are the spaces and circumstances where you feel the most safety in being able to share your feelings, your experiences, your perspectives, and your truth?
Those spaces definitely would be like Camp Anytown, especially with Advocacy Academy. I always felt like I could talk to people, kind of bounce questions off of them, even just say something that I feel like should be said. Um, but being in spaces where I know there's open-minded people, um, people who are willing to change or try and create change, um, are the places I feel most comfortable. But sometimes I know it's kind of weird, but sometimes being in spaces where you can tell there's a lot of people with microaggressions, people who don't see the same view as don't uh, see the world the same as you. Um, Sometimes I feel kind of comfortable speaking in that place because I've been there at so many points in my life, school, uh, whether it be school, lacrosse, a lot of different places like growing up, uh, me and my sister have always gone to schools. We would go to schools that had good diversity, but we would always end up being in classes with kids who didn't look like us, like
Mm.
a lot, because of the classes we took. And you would all you would feel like why do I have to take these classes? Um, because you're like it's just me in here, and now everybody thinks I'm the expert on what's going on in the black community, especially at my school.
Mm.
So uh, I've gotten a lot more comfortable in those situations, and being willing to say I'm not the only black person in the world that you can talk to, but being able to say and stand up for what is right, especially like if a classmate says something wrong, being there to say like, hey, that's not right what you just said, and kind of holding people accountable because I mean, just to say it to really help them. I don't want them to go off to college and get knocked out by somebody because they said something wrong. So it's
Mm.
kind of you're trying to help them while you're trying to help others.
So I didn't prepare, but this is making me think what you said of like how like okay like even in spaces where there are those microaggressions, like you've grown to be comfortable because you've experienced it so much. What's the interplay between safety and comfort in those spaces? And this almost seems like this is one of those situations where it's the opposite, where it's like you're more comfortable because you've experienced it so much, but at the same time there are those microaggressions, there are those overt acts and attacks against you that takes away from safety. What is the interplay for you between safety and comfort in those different spaces?
For me, I've gotten really comfortable being in uncomfortable spots and conversations. Um, while safety is always at the top of the list, and I always want to be safe and make sure other people are safe as well. Um, sometimes you have to kind of go and say, hey, I have to be uncomfortable and kind of unsafe right now to make sure that one day this area is comfortable and safe for somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
So I've always been somebody who always wanted to serve others and help others. Um, so sometimes I'm willing to go out on the limb and do what is necessary to help others. So for me, like I don't want to put I never put myself in a situation where I'm gonna have to get into like a confrontation or something like that. But I mean, there's been points in my life where it's happened. Like I remember playing in a game one time, and a kid was saying stuff. I was like, "Hey, you shouldn't say that," and then he got all upset and decided he wanted to try and hit me. But I mean, I didn't hit him. But I didn't get into a fight with the guy. I just said, "Okay, well, now I'm about to just score on you." So, but it goes back to what I was taught as a younger kid. My dad would tell me, "You never want to start a fight, but if you get into one, you better finish it." So that's kind of what it goes back to, and also goes back to being told you never let somebody else put their hands on you. So I mean, words they hurt, and uh, you don't feel good after somebody says something crazy to you. But as long as you're not putting your hands on me or threatening me in any way, I feel fine as long as I can talk to you, and as long as I told you what needs to be said, and you heard it. Hopefully one day it'll stick to you. You'll listen to it. But that's yeah, that's kind of how I feel about that.
I saw in the comments, the uncomfortable conversations are needed, highlighting the fact that, who bears the brunt of the discomfort in cases and also the threats to safety in certain cases. And so like I think I appreciate the insight that you're giving to this. I see another comment from Sam saying, preach, young humans always the calculated risk that so many adults are afraid of. Do you ever feel the pressure to code switch or change like what you were saying or how you were saying it in different circumstances? And if so, like what might be some of those pressures or circumstances?
Um, yeah, and in some places I can't say things how I want to say it. I mean, it just goes to me, how I was raised. You respect the environment you're in, and who you're around. But when you have to say something, you have to say it. So you have to figure out how to say it in the best manner that's possible. Um, like on the lacrosse field, sometimes it may come out in words that aren't that get bleeped out on TV, but it has to it had to come out some way, and that's the way a lot of them understand it at my age. Um, and but let's say I'm in like in police explorers, I've had instances where kids would say, "Oh, all people arrested are criminal are bad people," or something like that. And I mean, I'd change how I would say it, but I would say it in a way that they understood that no, a lot of people just make mistakes in their life, and everybody's made mistakes. Some people's mistakes are just a little bit different, and some mistakes break the law. So I mean,
Mm.
um, I don't think I think as I've gotten older, because especially when I was younger, I could just fly off and just say stuff. It would just come out. Um, I think as I've gotten older, it's gotten a lot better. Because when I was younger, I would get in trouble quite a bit at school. So for saying stuff, I mean, it was necessary stuff in my opinion that I had to say, but um, how I said it wasn't the best. So my parents really worked on me, worked with me on how to say things. Um, but it's just over time getting more comfortable, and then like I said, being in those spots is just like I gotta say it, so it's gonna have to
Hmm.
come out one way or another. So just kind
Mm.
of judge the room, judge what you're doing, and say what you have to say.
And I really appreciate the framing of like it's got to be said, and then how do we proceed from there? Preach, preach.
Yeah.
You've spoken to this a little bit of kind of like the resistance or backlash in terms of when you speak truth to power. How do you navigate that resistance, I guess? So how do you deal with people's reactions and responses, especially when you are trying to speak truth to power?
Um. One like the biggest thing for me is sometimes I can't just go off like if they say it right now, I can't just spit it right back whatever I want to say. Sometimes sometimes I have to take a pause um and really think about what they said and how I should what I should say to convey what I convey my point. It's sometimes it's hard. Some people just don't want to hear what you have to say. Um, but like even through Advocacy Academy, I've noticed different ways to if somebody's like pushing back against you about something, different ways you can in different spaces. I've kind of gotten to the point where when people are pushing back, you kind of have to get the point across, but sometimes you just can't. I mean, you can't argue like a brick wall.
Mm.
You just have to get the point across, but hopefully one day they'll think back on what you said. Um, is the pushback is going to come, so you just have to be ready for it and willing to fight back.
Mm. There's that mental preparation, that mental and emotional preparation, and work that comes prior to that situation. One of the things that I kind of wanted to explore before we wrapped up was that you practice a lot of humility. Like I just want to like point out for
For
affirm
folks,
you and point out for folks just in case that like you practice a heck of a lot of humility, and it is not common for that amongst a lot of folks, especially when folks are part of the communities that they are criticizing or critiquing, right, or taking a critical lens on. You're doing that with lacrosse. I also like you mentioned police explorers, and you're doing the same thing with the institution of policing as well. So I kind of just want to get your perspective on like what are your observations, experiences, and like insights on racism in policing.
um, kind of from a young age, seeing my dad be a police officer, seeing we had a police car right in front of our house. It was to me that was it was always cool seeing the police car and the uniform and seeing my dad as someone um seeing my dad as a hero. That was my thing. Um uh and then seeing my family, we had a lot of people that have been in the military, um and did public service jobs, teachers, all that type of thing. So it's always been kind of in my life being of service to others. Um, so um, growing up, I didn't notice how police officers could be bad because I thought they were all like my dad, so they were all good. Um, until I think I was about 7 or so. We were in a store, and it wasn't necessarily the police officer's fault, but it was a woman in a store in the mall. Uh, uh, said my sister was stealing, and she she didn't steal anything. So yeah, but we were in the store, and they called the police and all this stuff, and I noticed how that was kind of when I didn't notice it then, but now that I think back on it, that was the first time I noticed that this world isn't fair. Um, and that I wanted to be a part of something that could fix it. And then also seeing how in certain communities, especially here in St. Pete, some communities receive a high level of policing, an amount that people would feel safe, amount that children actually see officers and get to talk to them, while in other communities they don't. They see police officers as people who come in and arrest people and don't really care about the community. They're just there to take people to jail, and that's kind of it. Um, I I really want to be the person. I know I can't change the world, but I want to be somebody who can come out and talk to kids and show them that police officers aren't all bad, and that just like when I was growing up, I grew up around police officers, and I would go down to the police academy with my dad and see that, and I really want to give other kids that opportunity, while also making sure that communities receive, making sure that people feel like they're getting treated fairly when they have an encounter with the police. I know in my experience, an experience where I've had experiences where a kid tried to steal my as as childish as it seems my scooter, um, and tried to steal it and call the police, and the police officer took it, and he did the best he could, and while also realizing he was dealing with another young adult who was dealing with his own stuff. But I've also had experience with officers who didn't take the job seriously, um, didn't put in the work that is needed. They did the bare minimum, or even less than that. So to me, being a police officer, it's gonna be a job that some people don't like you, some people don't agree with you, but it's a job that's necessary. Somebody has to make sure people can sleep in their houses at night and stay safe, um, um, while also making sure that you can be that person who can step in when somebody's being treated unfairly. Um, that's what really drives me to want to be a police officer and really try and be some change in this community.
Also, I can see you a little bit better now. I think like that there's something that was happening with the video before. But
Yep.
as we're wrapping up, I just wanted to thank you for everything that you're doing, supporting folks in thinking more critically about allyship and what that can look like. And I think the leadership and support that you model, I think is a point of like reflection for a lot of folks. Asking questions, exploring nuance, doing that self-reflection work before showing up to spaces. So just want to like shout you out for that. And so that folks can continue to learn from you, engage in your journey and the work that you are doing, how can folks find you? Where should folks go? How can they support you?
First, I wanted to say thank you guys. Thank you all for allowing me to participate in this. It was really good talk, and I really enjoyed this. But um, if people want to reach me, they can follow my Instagram I have two Instagrams. One that's
We're cutting in and out just a little bit here. I don't know what just happened. We had a really clear connection for just a second.
yeah, internet probably.
All right, and Stacy coming in with the text version of it. So folks can follow you on Instagram at these on these two accounts. Awesome. And anything else that you want to share as kind of just parting words, parting reflections?
Just the only thing I wanted to say is just leave the world better than you found it. That's
Mm,
kind of something I live by, and don't be afraid to stand up and and speak what needs to be said. So, um, I mean, never be afraid of chasing a dream or chasing an opportunity. Um, just anything worth having is worth working for. So just just always know that whatever you do, especially if it's helping others, it'll come full circle and it'll help you in the end. So
Snaps to that. Thank you so much, Josh.
thank you.
Really appreciate you. I'm so glad that we got to have this conversation and all these insights. And look forward to talking to you again.
Yep, thank you.
All right, take care, fam.